Hello everyone, I'm Kyle Glockner, and welcome back to another episode of Faceoff, where I take two games, compare their mechanics, and determine which one stands out on top. For those who don't know, the Pokemon franchise is celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. Now, as a huge Pokemon fan myself, I cannot be more excited for everything this year has in store for Pokemon. But I think we need to take a step back to the beginning. That's right, on this episode of Faceoff, I'm going to be comparing the classics, Red and Blue versus Gold and Silver. Let's get started. The first generation of Pokemon games are still held as the greatest games in the franchise by many, and for good reason. These games are beautifully designed as the first entries of the series and set the bar high for RPGs to follow. Let's start with the battle mechanics. In Red and Blue, there were 15 different types that a Pokemon could have, each having a potential advantage or disadvantage over another type. A good example is the Golden Trio of Grass, Fire, and Water. Battling is the main focus of the game, with the main plot being to take on the 8 type-specific gym leaders in order to obtain their badges so that you can take on the ultimate challenge, the Pokemon League. There are multiple ways a player can go about doing this, either by powering their way through with their favorite Pokemon, or finding a Pokemon with a type advantage over the gym leader, which the game makes very simple. In each area before the gym, players can find at least one Pokemon that has direct type advantage over the next gym leader, making for excellent type placement. While battling is the core mechanic in Pokemon, the game has other goals for the player to achieve. Throughout their journey, the player will take on Team Rocket, a group of Pokemon thieves led by a man named Giovanni at various points during their adventure, and are forced to put a stop to their evil actions in order to progress at certain points. The overarching goal of these games is catching and categorizing all 151 Pokemon in the Kanto region, including legendary and mythical Pokemon. Now, as only one person with only one copy of one version of the game, this task is impossible. Pokemon is a franchise that brings people together, and one of the ways it does this is through its trading system. Red and Blue each have certain Pokemon that are unique to their world, which forces players to trade amongst their friends in order to truly catch them all. There are even some Pokemon like Haunter and Kadabra that require trading to evolve into the more powerful forms of Gengar and Alakazam. Considering these games' masterpieces would be an understatement, but let's just see how their sequels hold up. Released 2 years later in 1999, Pokemon Gold and Silver version took the player to the all-new Johto region and introduced not only 100 brand new Pokemon, but 2 new types, Dark and Steel, bringing the type total to 17 and the Pokemon count to 251. Now, this new type addition made the battle system more complex, but that's not a bad thing at all. This creates more strategy when making your team that Red and Blue didn't have by giving older Pokemon not only new types, but new evolutions as well. Unlike the previous games, however, Gold and Silver were not as generous with type placement. There are only a few instances where the player can find a Pokemon that is directly superior to the next gym leader. But in their defense, these games were made as direct sequels to Red and Blue, and meant to be played by experienced players, so I'll let it slide. Other new features include an in-game clock which allows for real-life accuracy for the new day-night cycle, which features an internal clock running at all times and adjusts the environment depending on the time of day. This new feature added certain events that can only occur at certain hours or on certain days of the week, making it beneficial to check certain areas often at different times. As for the plot of the games, like their predecessors, these games aren't very plot-heavy, except for legendary Pokemon and the return of Team Rocket, who are searching for Giovanni. This is one of the things that makes these games so great. Whereas most RPGs are known for their touching or engaging story, Pokemon games aren't typically too plot-heavy, yet they're some of the best RPGs ever made. These games were much longer than Red and Blue, and even allowed the player to travel back to the region they started in, Kanto. While in Kanto, you can see how the region has changed in 2 years, and you can see the difference between the generations and even take on old and new gym leaders, all leading up to a previous battle with the protagonist, Red. Honestly, between these two games, you can't really choose a winner. Without Red and Blue, Gold and Silver wouldn't have existed, and while yes, you could make that argument about any two games, what I mean by this is that Gold and Silver build off of what Red and Blue started, and managed to improve it no less. So for this battle, there is no winner. Well, what do you think? Do you think Red and Blue are the best, or do you think Gold and Silver take the cake? Be sure to let me know by tweeting me at ZTVGoofingOff using the hashtag Faceoff. Until next time, I'm Kyle Glockner, and I'll see you